Welcome back. You're listening to Houston Real Estate Radio. I'm your host, Shannon Register, and every week we like to hear from you and hear your real estate questions. You can give us a call at 281-882-8088 if you have a question you'd like to have one of our guests answer or have me answer. We're happy to do that. And I've told you before, we're trying to get to 13,000 likes on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook, or you just pull out your phone and get on Facebook, go over there and give us a like at facebook.com/Houston Real Estate Radio. If you have your app on your phone, all you have to do is look up Houston Real Estate Radio. We're right there, and we'd love to hear from you on Facebook as well. We do video record all the segments, so if you miss any of today's show, you can find us online at HoustonRealEstateRadio.com. We've got a great show for you today. This segment, we're talking with Craig Brown. He's the Senior Vice President and Regional Manager for IPX Investment Property Exchange Services. That's a long title, but what they do, what they specialize in is that 1031 exchange, so we're going to be talking a lot about that. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
And you've been on before, so this is
yes.
old hat to you. So we'll not focus so much this time on what is the 1031, because we've gone into great depth before, and people can find that archived on our website. But just give us an overall, briefly, what is the 1031 program?
Okay. Basically, what a 1031 does, it allows an investor or business owner to defer the recognition of gain when they sell an investment or business asset. So, simple example, they sell a rent house, they want to buy a duplex. They don't have to pay the capital gain tax on the sale of the rent house as long as they do it in a formalistic way, properly, and within a certain amount of time. And they just roll the proceeds from the sale over into the purchase. Mm-hmm. It allows them to defer that gain recognition.
Now, they do have some restraints on that, like time restrictions. There are some restraints. Tell us what some of those things are.
Okay. You basically have to have the entire process done within 180 days. There's a more narrow time frame, 45 days, to identify what it is that you may actually purchase.
Different property addresses.
Different property addresses. And typically most people use what's referred to as the 3-property rule. So they would sell one property, and then they're going to identify 1, 2, or 3 potential replacement properties, and ultimately buy any 1, any 2, or even all 3 of those.
Perfect. All right. So I know that there's some tax reform issues at hand. And, April 14th is big lobby day for realtors when we go to the Capitol and really talk about issues that we have, and this is clearly an issue for realtors.
It really is. The exchange, the concept of the exchange, has been in the tax code since 1921. So almost since the inception of the code was it recognized that investors didn't need to be penalized just because they were going to sell off of one investment into another. Yeah. They're not trying to take any cash out of a deal or anything else. They're just trying to buy the next thing. And if we kind of go back to our example, selling the rent house and buying the duplex, if I sell the rent house and I have to pay capital gains tax on all my gain, that means that the duplex is in effect going to cost me more because I'm giving up some of the equity off of the sale of my rent house that can't go into the purchase of the duplex.
So then fewer sales are going to happen. People are going to stick with what they've got and instead of selling.
That's right. People will continue to hold on to the property that they currently hold because the next property is more expensive, so they might as well just sit on what they have. And from a Treasury standpoint, there will be less tax dollars that'll be go into Treasury because of the fact that people aren't doing as many transactions.
So what is some of are they trying to get rid of it completely, or are they just trying to do some reform on it? What's the issue right now?
Well, I think when you step back and look at the big picture, essentially everything is on the table for the broad topic of tax reform. So 1031 obviously is something that's going to get into the conversation. However, the conversation both in the House and the Senate has been to completely eliminate 1031 transactions. And then President Obama has also suggested that maybe it should just be a limitation of no more than $1 million of gain should be able to be deferred in any one tax year. And either of those is really not a good idea for the economy. We commissioned a study from Ernst & Young, and they have estimated that GDP would have a negative impact over a 10-year period Mm-hmm. 61 to 131 billion dollars over that time period.
Wow.
So huge
impact
negative
on the
impact.
economy.
That's correct.
And why would he want to have a negative impact on the economy? The economy's had so many issues anyway. We need a strong housing economy, and this not only affects sale of rental properties, but sale of companies, sale of vehicles that are owned by companies, real property that's owned by companies, farms and ranches that are owned by company names if they're in a holding company or in an LLC. Or, I mean, it affects so many people.
Yeah, essentially everyone, because individuals and companies, LLCs, any type of taxpayer in the U.S. can utilize Section 1031 to go into that next investment as long as they're not cashing out of the deal. Mm-hmm. And so it literally impacts everybody that holds a property for investment or trade or business. Wow.
Where do you think this reform is going to take us?
Well, I really think that when we are able to sit down with the representatives, I think they begin to understand exactly how the 1031 works. For instance, last week we met with Congressman Brady, mm-hmm. A small group, and it was predominantly real estate related people, and I think he genuinely understood where we were coming from and saw the economic impact. And so right now we're on a very intensive educational position. We're really trying to meet with as many congressmen and senators as we possibly can. Obviously, we're active on the Hill, and we have a campaign. People can visit our website and they can go to a link and enter their zip code and easily send their representative a letter. It's just enter your zip code, hit the send button, mm-hmm. and it's populated. So
we'll post that link on the video. So if you go to HoustonRealEstateRadio.com and watch the video from this segment, you'll be able to see that link so that you, whether you're a realtor, a consumer, a business owner, whoever you are, anybody can go there and send a letter to their congressman and push for good change.
Yes.
Do you see any valid reform that needs to be done with the 1031?
I think the concept is very sound. Like I said, since it goes back to 1921, mm-hmm. This is not a tax loophole or anything like that. There are sound economic reasons why 1031 exists in the tax code.
Yeah.
And I don't really see a reason for it not to be there.
The 180 days, does that tie up very many people? I mean, can everyone find what they want in 180 days?
It's surprising that very few people fall out of a 1031. It essentially can't buy a replacement property. Now, we also counsel people that they shouldn't let the tax tail wag the dog. So if they make an identification of a property within their 45 days, and then they start to do due diligence and it just is not a good property to buy, you don't want to buy a bad property just to defer capital gains tax.
Pay the taxes and buy something better later.
Right.
Yeah.
And because the fee structure is relatively low, it's something that sometimes people will do to get that extra 45 days just to go take a look. Mm-hmm. So it's less than $1,000 to do an exchange, and so they'll open it up as an exchange, get that extra 45 days because they haven't thought about it.
Yeah.
Now they've got an extra 45 days to go look.
Would you say that most people who sell companies use the 1031 exchange?
I don't know that most people that sell companies, but a lot of businesses that do asset sales, they do utilize a 1031 exchange. Probably not as many as could, mm-hmm. Because take, for instance, let's say that you're a dentist and he owns land and building in his dental practice, and he decides that he wants to retire. Mm-hmm. A lot of times the dentist he'll sell his practice and he won't even think about an exchange. But he could actually sell the land and building and use that to go buy a ranch or a vacation home or rental property, and that would be a perfectly valid exchange. If he's going to not go into any other practice, then he wouldn't be able to exchange his equipment. Mm-hmm. But if he was going to relocate maybe to another state and open up a new dental practice, he could even do an exchange on his dental equipment as well.
Yeah, wow. And I know a lot of companies use it for vehicle changeouts.
They do. A lot of companies, you could take a real simple example. A lot of people do 1031 exchanges and they don't really know that they're doing them. So for instance, the florist that has 2 or 3 vans to make their deliveries. When the van starts to get a little worn and they want to go trade it in, when they take it to the dealership and trade it in, they're actually doing a 1031 exchange. Now, they don't have to use a company like mine, a qualified intermediary, but that trade-in is actually a 1031 exchange.
And the accountant accounts for that it's tax deferred.
That's correct. So on their income tax return, that's where that gets reported.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we appreciate the great information, Craig. Keep up the good work, and
thank you.
We'll post that link on the video for folks who want to send their congressman a letter.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks. And what's the website for your company in case people want to do a 1031 exchange and need your help?
The company website is IP as in Paul X 1031.com. That's IPX1031.com.
All right, fantastic. Craig Brown. We'll be right back here on Houston Real Estate Radio.